This episode of Made in America is brought to you by America's Inventor Lady and Home Talk USA. Home Talk is a proud member of the King's Broadcasting Network, which has been bringing you the best in home-based innovation since 1998.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us for this episode of Made in America.
This segment is brought to you by the law offices of R.P. Baraska. RPB law offices have been bringing corporate-level legal expertise to the independent inventor community for more than 20 years. For all your inventing legal needs, trust rpblawoffices.com.
Welcome, everyone that's now tuning in from the Invent America show. We want to welcome you to Made in America right here on the King's Broadcasting Network. I'm the Cajun contractor, Michael King, alone with my partner in crime, Miss Rita Crompton, the inventor lady herself. Miss Rita, how you doing? Boy, I tell you, when we roll from one show to the other, huh?
We do. We're getting really good at this, right?
Yeah. Well, people don't realize we got people coming in, going out, coming back. So constantly moving around all the networks, and we'd just like to welcome all of you to the Made in America show. A little different than Home Talk and Invent America. But Rita, I tell you, last week we had a great conversation, like things going on when it comes to products actually being made here in the United States, and the efforts we're trying to do to get all these manufacturers and CEOs back home and the features and benefits of producing here in America. And I know we got a great show. Can you tell us a little bit about our guests that we're going to have coming up soon?
Well, Damon Melcho is on. I will have him correct that in just a couple of minutes, but it's extreme bait tanks. Okay. And these tanks are used for a variety of things, not just fishing bait. And so the fun thing about all of this, Michael, is that, we get to tell the stories about people manufacturing right here. So, the tagline, we see it, we make it right here in the good old USA, is a lot of these are inventors, all right, who've gone now to that next level, and we get to tell their stories. It's wonderful. Yeah. Their challenges they've had. Sometimes they're generations. And sometimes it's like, all right, let's see what's going on. So we're able to then talk about, the challenges of manufacturing here. What problems did they solve? Why are we so fortunate to have access to these products? And for a lot of the inventors, the fact that they can, go to the next state over and watch their product being manufactured instead of flying to China and dealing with, the Chinese New Year is really wonderful, because products are faster, they're better, and it's wonderful to watch more manufacturing come back to the States.
Well, just the level of craftsmanship in the United States. I mean, that old saying, Rita, we talked about it in the past, you get what you pay for. That's the bottom line. I mean, if you go out and get your best deal, it might not be your best deal, and I can remember, I don't like to pick up on Walmart and pick on them, and we try not to pick on companies, but I can remember when Sam Walton first started his massive road to his what he developed. I mean, you walk in the store, you saw the flags, made in the United States. He was a proponent of the United States, and and unfortunately, in my opinion, they lost their way. And that's, we could argue it one way or the other, but the quality of some of the goods that are made overseas are just not, in my opinion, the sound American ingenuity, what we do here. Let's say we invent, we build, we don't copy, we don't, you heard me say it many times, we don't counterfeit stuff. I mean, the brain power in this country is amazing. And I used the space trip as a sample. To show what we're capable of doing in this country, and the successful space journey, and come back and to go as further as they ever went. I mean, this is what we do here. I mean, the minds here is amazing.
Well, it is. And, the quality of products are so different when they're made right here in our own backyard. And, a lot of people shop on Amazon. Okay, I live out in the forest. If I don't shop on Amazon, my God, I could have to drive for hours just to have a chance to look at a shelf. So, yeah, we do. But I have learned, okay, based on, going and looking and doing the deep on where is it made, and what is it? Because when you sometimes you can't even ship it back. It costs more to ship it back to them and try to get a refund than it does to just throw it in the trash and, go down and look at your local Lowe's or Home Depot for something that's made in America. And even there, sometimes it's a challenge. So when we go to then sites like FLI Products, and he's got the whole category made in America, and we can find then what we need based on the made in America. And on Amazon, even if it says on there made in America, Amazon is getting better at challenging on that, but it's still not a go-to. Some companies say it just to say it. So if you're going to then a site and you want to know that it is made in America, there's a couple of different places you can go that they've already done the checking. They know what's required to say made in America, and they've got your back.
Well, last week we talked about, raw materials starting here and then going to China and then put it together over there and bring back the raw materials over here. And our manufacturers are paying for it twice. When it started here, that don't make sense. It really don't make sense.
It doesn't. And more focus is being placed now on manufacturing here. There's companies that they've got their own line, but they're willing to expand and do some manufacturing for different products right here in America. And that's a great thing, because that's, we've seen that turn a little bit. And there are certainly, big businesses right here that are still manufacturing here and doing product here. So, our goal here on Made in America and, inventing 2.0, we need it, we make it. Being able to do those things right here in our own backyard is wonderful. And then being able to tell the stories on the radio, American consumer, go here and buy it, made in America.
Well, as our consumers and our manufacturers understand AI, as we increase our rare earth minerals, we got brighter days coming here. And we get this war solved and get that, and that's going to happen soon. So, we're in for an economy burst here. Interest rates are low; it's coming down. The Fed chief's going to get booted in about 6 weeks, so we'll get him out of there. So, it's everybody that was trying to, bring down the economy and bring down, what we're trying to do here. We got some great, and then all of a sudden, money's going to be available, right?
Yeah.
Once money's available, people start lending again. It's just a cycle of good things that, and I want to tell my audience that just bear with it a little longer. I know we have a little pain going on right now, but just bear with it a little. It's going to be all right. This is a great country with a great economy, great people. Everything's education, everything's here. So it's still here.
I think what we've learned in the last, 5 years or so is that, everybody wanted cheaper, and cheaper meant it does not last as long. And so, when it was a washing machine would last for 20 years. Now it lasts for 5. Well, you know what? You go back and you look for that made in America, because it is there are things there that will last the 20 years. And so people are now they're wiser. They're wiser. They've been taken advantage of, and now they are wiser, and they want to be able to say, okay,
it's amazing.
Let's find a made in America. Yep.
We used to have automobiles, 48-month financing, and then on the 50th month, the car would break down. Then it went to 5 years, and then on the 61 month, the car breaks down. Now it's 7 years, and on the 71 month, in 84, it'd be 85 months. then the car breaks down. So, boy, they got it down, don't they? They let you go that one month, and you got to buy it again.
Hey, I've got a Buick that is 26 years old.
Yeah.
And, we call her the big horse because she's, a big car. And, she just goes and goes and goes, and we count our blessings.
Yeah.
Because, it's just, you just can't say enough. And then you get, some of those other cars that cost a freaking fortune, and they're not even made in the U.S.
But you know who I really feel sorry for right now? And I know I want to get a couple of them on right now. And I know, Detroit doesn't want to hear this, but at the end of the day, it's the local mechanic. He's going away because he can't do the job anymore because what they've done, forcing people to go to the car dealership to get the repairs when a local mechanic doesn't have access. So somebody needs to do something about that because it's the local mechanic that keeps everything going, and he can't even do the job anymore. So I'm gonna be opening up a can. That's next on my can of worms. I want to open up.
Well, you know what? We got a DIY guy here that's got his own lift in his garage, and all the locals go to him. It's just awesome. So
yeah. All right, we got to take a short break. This is Made in America right here on the King's Broadcasting Network. I'm the Cajun contractor Michael King, along with my sidekick, the inventor herself, Rita Crompton. We'll be right back with our first guest, first topic. Yahee! Y'all come back now, you hear?
This segment is brought to you by SearchQuest Patent Search. SearchQuest provides for a comprehensive patent search that searches the entire world and not just the U.S. Patent Office. Make sure that before you spend those big bucks having a patent written, you've done your due diligence by getting a comprehensive patent search. Use SearchQuestPatents.com for all your patent search needs. They scour the world for you.
Welcome back to Made in America, because America is now making products here in the United States. And don't forget, the show airs every Saturday at 5 o'clock Central Time on the King's Broadcasting Radio Network and all our national radio affiliates. Rita, who's our sponsor?
This segment of Made in America is sponsored by TrueView. It is the only accurate 3D real-time imaging blind spot. So if you are one of those drivers that gets freaked every time that big vehicle comes up beside of you into your peripheral vision, TrueView, you need to get one of these. It's available on cargopatch.com. TrueView, you will know exactly where it's at and when it's coming up next to you. So get yours today. And my guest is Damon Melcho. Is that how you say it with the long
Perfect.
All right. Damon, extreme bait tanks. So tell us what is extreme bait tanks?
So extreme bait tanks, the evolution of extreme bait tanks from what it started out in 2018 to present is really phenomenal. When I started the business in 18, the few people out there that make bait tanks are not much more than what I call buckets and bubblers. And I did not know much more than that. I'm building bait tanks. And one of the comments that you made earlier was about solving problems. And, sales is really a problem solution type of deal. When someone has a problem, we inventors come up with a solution, right?
Yep.
And how I discovered what problems anglers were having was I started getting on boats. So I'd build the tanks, and they would say, hey, if you're ever in this area, now I'm in Kentucky and I'm delivering to multiple states, and mostly at that point was the Carolinas in that area. Feels like, if you're ever out this way, let's go fishing. I'm like, well, don't say it if you don't mean it. That's like inviting a hungry man to a steak dinner. So I said, let's go. I'll just bring you the tank. So I started getting on boats, long story short. And while we're waiting for the line to go down, they would ask me, can you do this or that? I'm like, hey, that's a good question. Never really thought of it. So I brought it back to our team. I'm like, this is what this guy wants. What can we do? So fast forward to today, and today the business evolves around custom fabrication and what we call build a tank. And I coined it after Build a Bear. So we take the basic tank, and when you go online and you look at what your options are, once you pick that footprint, which is the length, width, height of that tank, you can then customize it to specifically not only your boat, but more importantly, your bait. Because what I've learned is we've got tanks in 48 states and 9 countries as a result of having a solution for their problem, whether it be that space or that bait. And we've yet to find a bait we cannot keep alive. So the whole build a tank allows a person to go in and not have to buy absolutely every feature that we offer, but pick the features that best suit the boat and the bait. That's the short of the long.
Okay, so let's no pun intended, dig down into this. Um, when All right, I grew up digging for worms.
Right.
You put them in a styrofoam cup, you go out, fish for the trout and whatever, and go home and have dinner. So you're not talking about digging for worms here.
No.
All
No.
right, be a little bit more explicit in the type of
Gotcha.
bait that goes into it.
So if you're an angler and you fish with live bait, and we're talking shad, herring, gizzards, freshwater, saltwater, I've learned that anything that swims is bait to something. So if we can graduate up from night crawlers to live bait that swim, it'd be a minnow. So minnows are used for like crappies and maybe walleye and that kind of stuff. Well, the minnows, you're talking they're very small. But we've got boats offshore that use up to a 2 foot fish for a bait. And they're
Wow.
catching 30, 40, 50 pound fish. Or if you're real offshore with the bluefin tuna, 200, 400, 1,200 pound tunas with an 8, 12, 18-inch herring or cod or whiting or mackerel. So it doesn't, so what we've learned is no matter who you are, where you are, what you fish with to catch whatever it is you're fishing for, we can build a tank as small as 11 gallon to as big as 400 gallon and anywhere in between. So when I get a phone call, I'll ask my series of questions. Where do you fish? Because I base it on the 4 factors: the region of the bait, the type of bait, the size, and the quantity. So depending on where you are in the country, what kind of bait you have that you're fishing, that you're wanting to keep, how many and how big, that all determines the size of tank that you need and what kind of features go into that tank. And then we have to discuss how big of a space do you have on your boat so we can make sure you can fit that, because if not, you may have to adjust the quantity versus the size of the tank, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because when somebody says, "Oh, this is the kind of tank I want," and you then look at it and you say, "Well, this is the size it's going to be," and they go, "Whoa, wait a minute, that's 3/4 of my boat."
Exactly. Yeah. So, and a lot of times too, based on the experience that people have had, they'll say, "Well, I think I need this, maybe a 50 gallon," and I'll ask them those questions, and they'll end up coming back and I'll say, "No, you guess what? You only need a 20 or a 30 gallon. You only need half the tank that you think you need." And they're like, "Well, I felt like bigger was better." I said, "It is." But the other thing that we've learned is our numbers. So I know on a conservative rule of thumb, now we're talking baits if you go by length. A bait that's 2 to 4 inches, we can keep 1 to 2 or 2 to 4 of those baits per gallon. So if somebody has a 35 gallon tank, they're looking at 70 to 140 baits. If they are in the 6 to 8 range, it's 1 to 2 baits per gallon. And if they get into jumbos, it's one per gallon. So just that as a place to start, I can help them identify what size tank they need based on the size of their bait.
Amazing. So, Damon, we're going to take a break and go pay some bills, and then we come back. I want to know more about you. Tell us your background. How did you get into this? So, as we go back now and we look for other manufacturers out there that are making in America, if you know someone and you think they should be on the radio, have them get in touch, because you know what? There are 52 Mondays in a year, and I need another guest next Monday. So, stick with us. We're going to be right back and find out more about Damon and how he got into this.
If you're an inventor or you know an inventor out there who would just like to be able to have a conversation with other inventors, join the Inventors Roundtable. It's free. The meetings are virtual, so you can be anywhere in America and talk to another inventor. And for a lot of folks out there, understanding the process, being able to ask questions, getting good service provider information is critical to the inventing process. So, got questions? Want to join? It's free. inventorsroundtable.org.
And thank you so much for being with us for this segment of Made in America. We see it, we make it right here in the good old US of A. And our sponsor for this segment is Noah McNeely and Product Quick Start. If you or you know someone out there who's got to do a manufacturer's prototype and then get set up for manufacturing, Product Quick Start is where you want to go. And my guest is Damon with Extreme Bait Tanks. And, Damon, tell us a little bit more about you. What's your background? How did you get into this? Tell us your story.
All right, my story. Pretty simple. I grew up in the country, always had a tremendous love for the outdoors, hunting and fishing. And I'll tell you a funny one. So the elementary school was on the river. We were never allowed behind school because of the river. Well, I had a little John boat, little 25 horse Evinrude that my dad traded a 308 or some rifle for me. And I would go fishing before school and after school. And I remember the first time I went to school, I fished and I pulled the boat up behind the elementary and then tied it off. And the principal or vice principal that was getting all the kids off the bus saw me come up behind the school and they're like, "Hey, you're not supposed to be back there." And I'm like, "I brought my boat to school." So I get home and I told my mom and dad the story and I said, "Yeah, I had to go show them the boat. They didn't believe me." But always on the water, loved it. But then, life happened. Right out of high school, I joined the Navy. And, with everything going on in the Persian Gulf, that's where I was stationed for we were a 6-month tour out there, actually doing mine sweeping. So this stuff that you hear about the mines going on where they blow up these vessels, it's all the real deal. We had a helicopter carrier, it was on the Okinawa, and these helicopters would drag cables through the water to help pop those mines to clear the passageways for ships and merchant ships and whatnot to pass through. But after the Navy needed a job, and you don't know this, but what you're going to find very interesting, and I retired early from it, but I had 30 years in the death care business. So I helped manage and own and operate cemeteries and funeral homes, mostly in Kentucky and then a few outside like Illinois, Texas, and Virginia. And I was responsible for about 3,000 barrels a year. I was on the customer service side of it as well as the sales. So I was in the pre-need. I'd be the guy that would come to your home, and if anyone ever knows of anyone that did this, and basically explain all your options that when you pass away, you got this, and this, and allow people to put a folder together that would have all those selections made. So when the day did come and their kids or their spouse came into the business, they didn't have to go through that. We could pull the file and say, "Hey, when we met with your mom, met with your dad, everything's already picked out," and in many cases paid for. And they're like, "So I don't have to do anything?" Nope, just show up, just tell us when you want the service. Loved it, loved dealing with people. And that really today, that interaction with people has been a phenomenal asset in what I do now, because I take calls every day across the country and in some cases outside of the borders of the United States. And I know how to engage with people, and I can have these conversations and get to the quick of what it is they're looking for and help them make the best purchase possible that is going to benefit everything they're trying to accomplish.
So, it's amazing. I was in the funeral home industry too, but I sold an embalming product, and it was,
It's a different creature.
It is. It truly is. And, funny story is that, when I was a little girl and would tell Daddy we want to go fishing. No, girls aren't supposed to want to go fishing. And this, back a few decades. Well, Daddy, we want to go fishing. No, 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 girls aren't supposed to go fishing. Well, if you learn to dig the worms, that's where the worm story came from. Maybe we'll talk about it. Okay, we'd go out and dig worms. And I had a sister, and so we'd come in. Well, we got the worms, Daddy. It's like, well, you got to be able to put them on the hook, girls. You're not going to want to put them on the hook. Girls don't want to do that. Yeah. Well, then, you got to get the fish and you got to take the fish off the hook and then you got to clean the fish.
Yeah.
And when we proved to this father that we were going to do it all, he goes, fine. He never went fishing alone again. It was so funny. He goes, girls, it's time to get up. We're going fishing. And so through junior high and high school, man, Daddy would always, we were going fishing. We ate trout all summer long. It was awesome. So what have your biggest challenges been, Damon?
Wow. I don't know that I have any there's not enough hours in the day. I guess that'd probably be number one. We have developed with this website and the way with our reviews, 90% of our customers are Google searches. They find us and we go through everything that I just explained to you. But we don't really have a challenge. To my surprise and to my knowledge, and I could be wrong, and someone out there might prove me wrong, but we do not have any competition. There's nobody in the country that I'm aware of that can do a custom fabricated bait tank specific to your needs. And again, going to how fine-tuned we can make this, we have our standard products, which is what we call our footprints, the length, width, height, which everybody has to know before they put on the boat. But we'll get a request where they're like, hey, I want that tank, but I need it 2 inches shorter or an inch wider or 3 inches taller. We can do that. So for a lightweight portable bait tank made out of what we call HDPE, which is high density polyethylene, it was a food grade material, there's nobody that does it. And so we don't really have any challenges. We've been extremely blessed with understanding bait, how to keep bait. And the whole goal, Rita, is because bait can be expensive or time consuming if you're catching it, but how do you bring that bait out of the tank better than when you put it in there? And we've got all that figured out. And one of the keys, if you're interested, is there's a part called a venturi. And what a venturi does is it microscopically infuses air into the water. So by adding these venturis to all these pumps, you get a constant flow of filtered oxygenated water, which is ideal for any bait. And John Godwin with Duck Dynasty, I'd met him at ICAST about 4 years ago, and he coined the tank the outdoor aquarium. I said, man, John, I got to use that because that's perfect. That's exactly what it is.
Amazing. That's wonderful. So then what has been your biggest surprise?
That nobody else is doing what we've done. I say fishing's been around since Jesus walked on water, and no one's ever thought to do this. And I don't understand why that is. It just blows me away. That'd be my biggest surprise.
I read on your website that your tanks can be used for other things besides bait.
Yeah, not night crawlers, but
maybe
you
not.
drown them. So that's the other arm of the evolution of the extreme. So it started off with bait tanks, and then we started getting calls, and it was all freshwater. And then we started getting calls offshore. And really what really catapulted us into the saltwater is I got the phone number of Dave Marciano on Wicked Tuna. And I don't know if you've ever watched Wicked Tuna. So I called Dave up and I told him who I was. And he said, not interested. And I said, Dave, I completely understand. I appreciate. I said, all I'm asking is for 30 minutes of your time. My time, my dime. I'll show up. You just tell me when and where. And he said, okay, fine. So I drove the 2,000 some miles to go meet with Dave. I brought some tanks. I got on his boat. And he looks at me, he goes, holy cow. He goes, how is it that a guy in Kentucky has figured out a problem that we have been dealing with forever here? And I said, I don't know, but here I am. And they were just basically using pickle barrels with nothing, just and bags of ice trying to keep the water temperature down to be able to get that one bait out on the hook to be able to catch that trophy tuna. Wow. So the evolution of Extreme has taken us from freshwater to saltwater. Then we started getting calls from marinas and bait and tackle stores looking for what I call long-term bait storage. I'm like, yeah, we can do that. So we started building these bigger tanks that I mentioned earlier, where they can buy in bulk once a week, sell all week long, and replenish on a Monday and repeat. And then the dock tanks, same thing. People are buying for their docks, so they have their private stash of bulk bait to be able to fish with all week long. And the time and money that it saves people, even though these are significant investments, by the time you add up the time and the money in lost bait, the tanks actually pay for themselves.
Very cool. We'll be right back, everybody. We're going to go pay some bills, but we will be right back with Damon and Extreme Bait Tanks in just a minute.
Introducing the amazing new Snoozle. It sprays faster, lasts longer. Ask for Snoozle by name.
Thank you so much for being with us for this final segment of Made in America. We see it, we make it right here in the good old US of A. And this segment is brought to you by RPB Law Offices. It brings corporate level legal expertise to the independent inventor community, and it's been doing so for over 20 years. So for all of your legal needs, the trusted rpblawoffices.com is where you want to go and get in touch. And my guest for this final segment is none other than the founder, father of Extreme Bait Tanks. And Damon, how do you want to wrap this up, Damon? What do you want to share with everybody out there about your story and your products?
So going back to me being in the funeral business, I believe, and this is where we lack in this country. We've gotten away from it. You mentioned the cars. We live in such a disposable world. And when we started making our products, we made a decision. We weren't interested in being the cheapest. We were interested in being the best. And the best is two parts, not just the quality of the product and the quality of the materials that go in there and their functionality, but the customer service. It is so difficult today. I'll get a phone call and they'll be like, oh, I didn't, on a weekend, and I'll answer. And they'll be like, I didn't expect you to call or to answer. And I'm like, I like teasing. I was like, well, you called me, didn't you? But I like to have those personal interactions with every single customer, not just before the sale, but after the sale. And I'll get a call from customers multiple years later, and I've got a way to know who they are, what they bought, when they bought it. And they just think I walk on water, but it's not really anything that I do to impress anybody. That's the service I want to provide to anyone that's given me money and has trusted in allowing me to put a product on their boat, dock, or what have you. So everything you and Michael were talking about what we've lost in this country by not being made in America, customer service is a part of that in a lot of people's opinion as well.
Oh, you mean I can't call China and complain?
Well, good luck getting a hold of somebody. Or, yes, you're right, yes.
I know. I had a gentleman call me on Sunday morning, and he goes, but you answered your phone. I said, you're calling me. Did you want me to hang up so you can get my voicemail? And he goes, no, I've got a question for you. And I said, so how did you hear about it? He goes, I'm listening to you on the radio. It's like, okay, well, let me answer your question for you then. And, it's always fun to be able to talk to people, answer their questions, and say, okay, this is the next step. Oh, and by the way, what are you doing on Monday? Let me get you on the radio.
There you go.
So, somebody trying to get a new product out there, what would your advice be for them?
So somebody's trying to get a new product out there. It's very, I didn't do my due diligence like I should have starting a business as big as this one is now. But it's grown significantly. Do your research, but understand if you're not willing to have those conversations with people to help identify what the problem is that you're trying to solve. If you're just out there trying to make a quick buck and selling something and not be involved, I mean, I know you mentioned Walmart and Amazon. That's what a lot of those people do. And that's fine. I mean, they serve a purpose. But if you're really wanting to have a quality business that you can put your name on, and I always was like this. If you're a customer of mine and I run into you in Kroger, I don't want to hide behind aisle 3 just because I don't want you to see me. I want to be able to say, hey, and know that that conversation's good and you're happy with me and I'm happy with you. So just be prepared. There's a lot more hours involved, especially if you're willing to make the commitment than most people are willing to do. But if you're doing that, if you're willing to do that, and you've got the idea, people will also buy from you because you'll take the call, because because you have good customer service. Some people can have a bad, a not so an inferior product or not so good product, but they'll still get customers because of the good customer service. But if you can have both, you got it mastered. No one can touch you.
You're absolutely right. So give us your website. Where do they go to find you?
ExtremeBaitTanks.com. No E in extreme, just X. ExtremeBaitTanks.com. And that's a full service website, meaning all the products, all the pricing. But I'm always welcome for the phone call if you want me to help you, help steer you through there.
So, and you're also then listed on FLI products, correct?
Yep. FLI, Cabela's, Bass Pro, and recently West Marine. Thanks to FLI.
Yep, they are wonderful. I know I always appreciate it when Kevin sends me a contact like he did yours.
Yes.
And
yes,
you know
ma'am.
what? When I called you, you answered the phone.
I did, even
You
though
did.
I didn't remember who you were. Sorry.
So no,
Won't happen again.
I understand that. We've got a bond now. So you know what's next for you?
So, what's next? As we continue to grow in the manner that we have, I am interested in boat manufacturers. So the other we talked about bait, but we never talked about fish. We also make a product for live wells. So the bait's obviously to catch the fish, live wells to keep the fish. So if you're in a tournament, especially tournaments that like to do live weigh-ins, we build what we call CPR tanks for catch and release because that fish has struggled, it's weak. You can put it in our tank. And the joke is it takes one guy to put the fish in, it takes two to get them out because they will knock you out coming out of that well. So I'd like to get involved with a boat manufacturer so they can have more of a turnkey product. And because the boat owners that I talk to, they love their boat. If there's ever one complaint, it's their live well. Well,
Okay.
again, I've got the solution.
All right, that's good to know. And everybody, we have got to go. I look forward to knowing that all of you are out there next week for another episode of Made in America. And it is preceded by Invent America, and it is preceded by Home Talk USA. There is a whole bunch of us out there. See you next week.